Welcome to Real Estate Radio Live, an informative and engaging hour discussing everything you need to know about the world of real estate. Your hosts, Bobbi Decker and Buddy Sope of Sotheby's International Realty, provide education and insights important to buyers and sellers locally, nationally, and globally. Selling your home to a foreign buyer or a new recent transplant to your area? Contemplating a second home or a vacation property somewhere else? Looking to find a solid investor market area? Then this show is for you. And now, to guide you around the world of real estate, here's your hosts, Bobbi Decker and Buddy Sope.
Hello, everybody. This is Buddy Sope. We have a fun show for you today. Joe and I are here in California, and Bobbi is off in Chicago. And the reason she's in Chicago is the National Association of Realtors annual big conference. And so she's going to be giving some overview on the National Association of Realtors conference and some things that are going on there. But in reality, you know, we've been telling you a lot about international markets lately. I think the National Association of Realtors is actually going to have to change their name to the International Association of Realtors here pretty soon. Because one of the things that Bobbi's going to tell us about is some pretty interesting things they do in the international arena there at the conference in Chicago. So Joe's here, Bobbi's there. It's going to be great fun. She's got several guests to talk to today. Joe, why don't you give us a little bit of heads up on our little program here and all the good ways people can make sure they're connected with us.
Absolutely. Thanks and welcome in. Always good to be with Buddy and Bobbi on a Friday. And this is Joe Kuchera with Real Estate Radio Live. Before we get our show started today, just a couple of reminders. You could tune in on the radio at KDOW 1220 AM as usual during this time period from 3 to 4. We're Monday through Friday. Also, you go online. If you have an internet connection anywhere in the world, you can connect at this time and listen to the show at kdow.biz. Just click on the button that says Listen Live, and you could do that. We'd love to have the Facebook followers, so I know we have them on Facebook right now, feeding live. Continue to do that. Share with your friends. Tell us what you think. Interact. That's what we're going to do. We're going to continue to do the show, so you could tune in that way. And lastly, be sure that you download the podcast. You could do that at iTunes by simply typing in Real Estate Radio Live, or you could go to our website at reradiolive.com. If you want to interact during the show today, best thing to do is text your questions in 408-838-9060. Again, if you have questions during the show, 408-838-9060. All right, I'm going to bring in Bobbi straight from Chicago across the country. That's how we roll, don't we?
Hey, you know, at least we're here in the United States this time.
That's right.
Hey there.
Okay,
Hi,
Bobbi.
Hi, guys. Are you hearing
Welcome
me?
We got you.
We got you. Well, this time it's going to work because poor Rachel, it didn't work from Belize the first time. But I have two fabulous guests here, Mike Cobb and Rachel Jensen, both from ECI, those wonderful, wonderful communities and projects that they're building over there and all the reasons why. But before I jump into that, I'm going to put on Mike, and he can tell you about his background, and then he'll be followed by Rachel.
Well, good,
Yeah, stay
Bobbi.
right
Thanks
close to
for
the
having
phone,
us,
Bobbi.
Buddy. Thanks for having us on the program today. My background is pretty straightforward. I graduated from college in 1986 and was in the computer business for about 13 years. But in the mid-'90s, I started going down to Belize on vacation with a buddy of mine, and went down on vacation, and we saw some business opportunities, first on the finance side of things, and we started a little mortgage company. And as we started to see more and more opportunities to serve folks predominantly from North America in the region, we moved into real estate development, resort ownership, resort management. And back in 1998, I left the computer business, went full-time on what we're doing now. And in 2002, picked up with my wife and my 2-year-old daughter and moved down to Managua, Nicaragua, and lived there through December of last year. And we've built several companies. Our mortgage company became a bank, and we still do a lot of financing of North Americans who want to buy properties throughout Central and South America. And we've developed real estate companies now in Belize, Nicaragua, Costa Rica, and Panama. And we also have a teak plantation that I know that Bobbi and Buddy got to go out and see the teak plantation when they were in Panama a few weeks ago.
We certainly did.
So, so we've really looked at ways to serve a North American consumer in Central America, and it's just been really exciting. And I think we're just at the beginning of some incredible, wonderful things. And I know Rachel's going to talk a little bit about Belize and what's happening there. So.
Yeah, I think there's lots of areas of opportunity, and we've been spending some time here on the radio sharing that with our audiences around the world. So, and
Exactly.
Rachel's got one of the best places to talk about Belize.
That's because she loves the golf cart.
Exactly.
It's true. They are a lot of fun to drive. I did ask Bobbi and Buddy if they wanted to drive while they were there, and they were content being
Stay close to your phone, please. Stay close to your phone. We're losing you guys.
Okay.
Yeah, make sure you guys
Sure.
stay
So a
close to the
little bit
phone.
about my background. I went down to Nicaragua in 2010 for a medical mission trip. At that point, I was studying biology and Spanish, and my goal going down to Nicaragua was to work with a group down there. And we spent one of our days at Glam Pacifica. It was just a relaxing day, and Mike Cobb
Rachel,
wasn't
please
there,
stay close to your
but we
mic.
ended up having a really great time anyway. And a couple of years later, when it came time towards graduation, I realized I didn't want to go into the medical field anymore. And I was talking to my career advisor, who was the one who took me down to Nicaragua in the first place, and she said, well, why don't you consider the Peace Corps? So I applied, I got accepted, and the January following, I would have been in Panama teaching English. So that left a good time in between graduating and then Peace Corps to do something. So she said, well, I know you had a really great time in Nicaragua. There's an internship program down there. Why don't you go down for a few months? After that, then you can go off to Panama. And I thought that was a great idea, would help me practice my Spanish. Little did I know that I wouldn't end up leaving. So I ended up staying with ECI Development, lived in Nicaragua for a while, and now Belize is home. And it was a fairly tough decision to decide if I wanted to stay with ECI or the Peace Corps. But after really looking at both of the opportunities and seeing what ECI was doing and the impact that it had, not only on the clients that we were serving, but also on the local community and the jobs that we were providing and the opportunities, it was really a no-brainer. So been with the organization over 5 years at this point, and it's just been a phenomenal opportunity. And as you and Bobbi saw, we've had a really great time down there meeting great people. So that's a little bit more about me.
Well, that was actually a very good kind of commentary, because in one regard, the wonderful things that you guys are doing in the communities you serve almost has a Peace Corps-like attribute to it. The schools that you've built and the clinic that's opening in Nicaragua to serve the local community as well as your residents. I mean, that's like an extension of the Peace Corps in a way, isn't it?
It is, and it's really meaningful to be able to give back to the community while doing that, and also making a difference in other people's lives throughout the world as well, right? People who from North America can't necessarily afford to live in North America anymore, and they're looking for opportunities and places to live south of the border. So it's been great on many, many levels, and ECI does a handful of tremendous work throughout the region where, you're right, it does have a bit of the Peace Corps factor to it, and I'm not sleeping in a mud hut, and there is air conditioning, so that's nice.
Right. Okay, Bobbi, so you guys have spent some time at the International Pavilion. How about giving us a little flavor on what's going on there from you and Mike and Rachel?
Well, I would love to do that, but Michael had just a filler for Rachel. I don't want him to not get it in, so I'm going to defer to him for 1 second.
Bobbi, thank you. The one thing that we talk about as a company is this idea of community and how important it is to create community for our clients and our customers. But to be really, truly authentic to that, it's an engagement. It's an engagement with the communities that we are home to as well, and we're guests in those communities. So it becomes incredibly important to engage and really try to make meaningful and significant, positive changes to those communities and where they need them. I mean, they do wonderful things for us as well. So it's a very symbiotic, wonderful relationship. We bring resources that they don't have. They have resources that we don't have, and together we create an incredible, larger community for everyone. So it's really special in a lot of ways.
I have a little bit of a story. Bobby knows I have more stories. Joe knows I have more stories.
Oh no!
We have about a minute. We have about a minute and a half for our next break. So I'll just give you a warning right
good.
now.
All right.
Joe, I love how you get that minute and a half story out of that. I love it.
All right. So I have to do this fast story.
Okay.
So at the Nicaragua property, just to pick up on Mike's comments, the folks that were doing the cooking in the kitchen were being trained by a French chef. And they were learning all the things that the French chef had to do. And then Patrick said, one day I said, how about doing something different? And they started to add some of their flavors to the cooking. Wow. And all of a sudden, they changed all the menus to go with the local interpretation of French cooking. It was quite a good story, nice. I think.
Very nice.
Are we close to that minute and a half now?
We're close. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our first break, and we're going to come back. We have much to talk about here. We're tapping in from Chicago with Bobbi. She is in Chicago. Buddy and I are in studio. And we got Rachel and Mike on the phone, too. We're talking about Belize, Nicaragua, and the travels. So, all right, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back. Stay with us. So Facebook fans, stay there. Follow us. And we'll be back in just a couple minutes. Joe Kuchera sitting alongside Buddy Sope and Bobbi Decker via Chicago. We'll be back with you to continue the live show in just a couple minutes.
For more information on today's program, visit RERadiolive.com. That's RERadiolive.com.
Are you living your desired lifestyle in your primary residence or your vacation property? Is it time to redefine what living environment works best for you? If you are a couple with a growing family, an empty nester, or just want that getaway property that fulfills a dream, each of those circumstances could mean selling and or buying a property. The Bobbi Decker team can provide you optimized results, either with her San Francisco Bay Area team or working with any of the 750-plus Sotheby's International Realty offices around the world. Bobbi's skills, attention to detail, and level of support for her clients has set her apart in assisting people to optimize results selling their properties or finding the home that meets their needs and desires. For more information or assistance, contact Bobbi at 650-346-5352. Visit her website at www.bobbidecker.com or email bobby.decker@sotheby'srealty.com.
Welcome back to Real Estate Radio Live, streaming live on iHeart, TuneIn, and KDOW.biz. For more information on today's topic or guest, just visit RERadiolive.com. That's RERadiolive.com. Again, your hosts for today's edition of Real Estate Radio Live, Bobbi Decker and Buddy Sope.
And Joe Kuchera, welcome in again from our break. Joe Kuchera sitting alongside Buddy Decker, Buddy Sope. Bobbi Decker is in Chicago. And we are excited about the show today because we have some great guests that are calling in along with Bobbi away from the studio, Mike and Rachel. And we got a little bit of their background, and Bobbi's going to talk a little bit about the convention, the National Association of Realtors that's going on there. One of the biggest. Is that the biggest one you guys have each year, Bobbi?
Yeah, well, it is the big one. It's the fall convention. Next year it's going to be Boston. And last year it was Orlando, so they try to get around the country. I'm pretty sure that the following year we'll be back on the West Coast. But they always have the Washington, D.C. meeting in May, June, always in Washington, D.C. That makes it easy.
All right.
Okay, so you were going to give us a little bit of insight. You guys have been in the International Pavilion today. You were going to share a little bit of that, Bobbi and Mike and Rachel, what's going on in that fabulous pavilion. I remember it last year, sitting in a couple of presentations. I was a little light on the language from, was it the Ukraine? Was it Russia that I didn't know very well? But fortunately, the graphics were kind of told the story. So how about a little bit of what's going on there, Bobbi?
Well, I would love to, but I want to also tell you that one of the things even Mike didn't know was going on in Nicaragua is they're taking pictures. Things, Joe, when your kids were going to school, you never thought for 1 second you wouldn't get a picture every year that they were in school, right?
Right.
There are parents that have never seen their children in a photo. And so ECI decided to make that a project. So they go to the schools and take the pictures and give them to the parents. So anyway, I said that to Mike today, and he goes, yeah, my team's pretty cool. So
yeah, they are.
It's easy. They are. It's easy to be a cheerleader for a company that does good along with trying to create profits. You know what I mean? So
yeah, we know what you mean.
Absolutely. Here in Chicago, I very much enjoyed just having the people come up, and everyone's excited about Central America, about Belize. Of course, you know that the water is so spectacular, but I'm going to let the man who knows, Mike Cobb, run with it, because the whole global, this didn't even exist 3 or 4 years ago, and now the push is global, isn't it, Mike?
Oh, it is, Bobbi, and what we're seeing incredibly is, looking at the last year's data, $153 billion of international transactions happened inside the United States. That was foreigners buying property, residential property, specifically in the United States, $153 billion. And it represented about 10% of the total real estate transactions, which is incredible, and it's wonderful. And so when you flip that on its head, you say, well, okay, that's foreigners buying property in the United States. How many people from the United States are buying property overseas? Nobody knows. Nobody knows. It's hard to measure it. I hate to use the word impossible to measure, but it's hard to measure. And one of the things that I've been doing with the folks at NAR Global and Janet and some of the others is to help develop measurement tools for U.S. realtors to begin to have data that they can provide to the NAR research team so that we can start to measure it. We can start to understand what that really is. If you just look anecdotally and you say, there's 2-3 million North Americans that have property in Mexico, and then you just go right on down to Belize, Costa Rica, Panama, Nicaragua, Colombia, Argentina, just right on, and then you start with Europe and other places. I mean, the amount of transactions have to be astronomical just from anecdotal data. But anecdotal doesn't work. We need to organize that. So, one of the things that I spend most of my time doing at a conference like this is actually meeting with folks at NAR, folks in the global committee, and other people who are, working in that space to help really advocate for a formal outbound program. And so I sort of have my own mission, and then, Rachel and our team running the booth and other things. But specifically, my mission and my mandate as a director of National Association of Realtors is to help develop the outbound program formally with NAR and to advocate for that. So that's probably what I'm going to spend most of my time doing. Most of my day today has been doing that. So.
Okay, so how about the pavilion itself, Rachel?
It's been pretty interesting. Bobbi, you mentioned that a few years ago the global side didn't really exist, and I think my first time at this event was about 4 years ago, and it's really been tremendous to see the growth, not just within the global pavilion, but also from the realtor side who are showing interest in going global and doing something more international. And the conversations that we've had, the Expo Center just opened up 2.5 hours ago, and the conversations that our team has had at this point with folks who understand that their clients are looking internationally, and not just their clients, but they personally are looking internationally and are just trying to find out what the next step is. And that's where there's a big hole right now in the market is finding out what the next step. So it's been really fascinating talking to folks and hearing their interest, because the world is becoming more and more borderless to a degree, and folks are becoming more internationally minded. And it's been exciting to see that so far here at the event.
All right, very good. Well, let me jump in here. The world's shrinking. We all know that. Bobbi was kind enough to share some of the Central America trip with us. We talked about that. Rachel, you were the host in Belize, and Mike and you and Patrick were the host in Nicaragua. So if you can, give us a little bit of a thumbnail of your perspective and the highlights of that.
Oh, my goodness. Where do we start? Where Uh-oh, where do we go? We've got to start with stuff that we can talk about on the radio, right?
That's right.
Well, I have to tell you, each country has its own flavor. It really does. Going to Costa Rica and seeing property that hasn't even been touched yet on the Caribbean side was amazing. And the fact that Mother Nature stopped raining for 3 hours so that we could do that. Because I want you to know, prior to it and right after that, it poured its little heart out because it was that hurricane that was buzzing through. And then Panama, with its teak forest. And, to talk about that, Mike, that's a very interesting project.
Yeah. No, thank you. Yeah, it's funny because when I was setting up the teak plantation, I was looking for property back in 1998. I was living in Northern Virginia at the time, and then and I was in a Rotary Club, and I can remember going to the Rotary meeting, and I'd either be headed down to Panama or I'd just come back from Panama. And, and before the meeting, we'd eat breakfast at the table. And the folks would just be like, all right, now, Cobb, what are you doing? I'm like, yeah, I'm buying a piece of property in Panama, and we're going to plant teak trees, 100 acres of teak trees. And in 25 years, we're going to cut them down, and we're going to make a bunch of money, and we're going to plant them again for our kids or our grandkids. And people thought I was just crazy. And I remember finally coming up with an answer that seemed to work. And it was just simply that in 25 years, I'm either going to need the money and I'm going to be really glad I did this. Or in 25 years, I'm not going to need the money, and I'm going to be really glad I did this. And so here we are in year 19, right? Year 19, and I'm already really glad I did that because 6 more years or 7 more years, we're going to cut the trees down. We're going to make a lot of money. We're going to replant them for the kids or for the grandkids. And so the teak is really this incredible generational wealth stewardship investment. It's not a cash flow investment. I know everyone talks about cash flow. We're in the real estate business, and Bobbi and Buddy, and everyone's talking about buying houses and cash flowing them and that kind of thing. And that's great. I think for a big chunk of somebody's portfolio, that makes a lot of sense. But if we're trying to find ways to steward wealth into a generation or a second or a third, fourth, fifth generation, then all of a sudden we need different types of opportunities and investments. And teak, specifically, teak timber, is a phenomenal way to do that. And it really is cool. And I know you guys went down, and I saw pictures of you guys scraping mud off your boots when you got back out to the road. I mean, it's a muddy business, but it's a wonderful way to grow wealth, literally grow.
I'm going to have you hold on a second there. We're going to have to take a quick break. When we come back, hold that thought because I want you to finish this story. Joe Kuchera sitting alongside Buddy. We are via Chicago with Bobbi. We'll be back with you in just a couple minutes.
RERadiolive.com. That's RERadiolive.com. Welcome back to Real Estate Radio Live, streaming live on iHeart, TuneIn, and KDOW.biz. For more information on today's topic or guest, just visit RERadiolive.com. That's RERadiolive.com. Again, your hosts for today's edition of Real Estate Radio Live, Bobbi Decker and Buddy Sopet.
Hi, guys. This is Buddy, and we're back on the air. We're also, our Facebook boys and girls, we were worried they weren't getting all the information, but they've got the pictures of us, and they're hearing everything from everybody in Chicago. That's great. And so everybody in Chicago has been talking about the International Pavilion, and we kind of stepped back just a little bit and wanted to touch briefly on the show that we did 2 weeks ago now, Joe, that kind of hit the countries, and I'm going to ask Rachel to add a little commentary to each one. First and foremost, we went to Costa Rica, and we went to the East Coast, and the property there is not developed yet in the Grand Caribbean, but it is going to be spectacular when it is. We had a grand time. Rachel, you weren't there with us, but you said you spent a lot of time in Panama. What kind of were the high points for you about Panama?
Sure. Well, it was exciting being there in Panama with you and Bobbi because it was a new experience for me as well, going out to the property. And I saw a part of the country that I hadn't seen before, specifically Los Azotes, and it was unbelievable. It was just so remarkably beautiful, and you had beautiful beaches right in front of you from every angle of the property, and hills and mountains, and it was just really incredible. And for me, I think one of the most interesting spots or things about Panama is the rich history, right? All of the countries in Latin America are so different. And a lot of that is just based on their history. And Panama, because they've had the Panama Canal and it's been operating for over 100 years at this point, there's a lot of history there in the country, and as a result, the growth there within Panama has been different and then accelerated in a sense compared to Nicaragua or Costa Rica or Belize. And we saw that. We read all about the history, didn't we, when we were there?
Oh yeah,
we
had a grand time. We had a grand time with that.
City developed.
Yeah, Mike made me read the 700-page book, The Path Between the Seas. So I had all that content down on Panama, and then we went off to Nicaragua, and I'm sorry, you were with us in Panama, not in the Costa Rica, and then we went off to Nicaragua, and Patrick kind of was our major host there, and this is really a community that's well developed and well on its way. Give us some of the things that you really love about that property.
Sure. Well, what I like about Nicaragua generally, it's a place I lived for a while, and one of the things that I specifically like about it is that it's really affordable, and it's very similar in geography to Costa Rica, but not as developed as Costa Rica and not as well known as Costa Rica. And the reason for that is Costa Rica has had tourism there for 20, 30 years, where Nicaragua is really just starting to ramp up their tourism. So the growth there has been starting and starting nicely. But what I really appreciate about the country is how wonderful the people are. Everybody's just so genuine, and they are Spanish speakers, and they'll try their best to help you out, even if they don't know English and you're speaking to them in English. But the property specifically, what I really enjoy about that is just, honestly, it's the beaches. It's 3.5 miles of Pacific Beach, and I know in Northern California that when you dip your toes into the water, you may just jump right back out. But in Nicaragua, the Grand Pacifica property, it's about 83, 84 degrees year-round, so it's easy to jump in, feel refreshed, but not necessarily have to chase out and get up to your towel when you get out of the water.
Yep, and you can take your horses, because they have an equestrian center there. You can take your horses down and ride on the beach. That's always quite a thrill. So now we're moving on to the one I think you love the most, which is Grand Bayman and Belize. I think this is really the next big thing, just based on some of the conversation you shared with us. So maybe share us a little of that conversation of why this is probably going to be a very important year for Belize and going forward from here.
Yeah, absolutely. So Belize has really been gaining traction in the international world since the 70s, at least, with the divers and fishermen, because Belize, specifically Ambergris Caye, parallels the largest living reef in the world. So it's the second largest in size after Australia, but it's the largest living reef. So since the 70s, divers and fishermen have been coming. And now it's more of the general vacation spot for families. And the reason for that is because it's becoming a lot more affordable to get there. Southwest Airlines, for example, they fly from Fort Lauderdale now. It's about $60 one way per ticket. So, again, really, really affordable. And we're seeing this demographic shift coming from honeymooners and divers who are looking for rustic accommodations to now more of the families and to the high-end travelers. And it's becoming a lot more accessible and more affordable to get there. So the interest has peaked. People have been hearing about Belize. Even if they're not a diver or fisherman, they've heard about it, and they still want to come down for a little bit of R&R anyway. So unfortunately, with the hurricanes that happened throughout the Caribbean, luckily Belize was untouched. So I suspect that we'll be seeing a lot of their travelers coming to Belize this year, and we're really looking forward to that. It's a fantastic country. The people, again, are very, very genuine. Because it was formerly a British Commonwealth, English is the official language, which makes it a lot more comfortable when you're going on a vacation or your travels and you don't necessarily speak the local language. Well, in this case, it is English. So that makes a huge factor, a good factor when people are looking at where they want to go for travels.
Absolutely. I think two factors in my mind from everything that you showed us there. One is that, of course, the hurricane scenario was left so many islands devastated, and we feel bad for all those people and the devastation that went into their property and some people as well. That's horrible stuff. But the reality of it is there's only 4 islands now that were not touched by the hurricanes, and Ambergris Caye is one of them where your properties are. The other, to me, is the concept that as we as you brought us around the island, we began to see brand names of big companies, hotels that are starting to build properties there, and that I think is going to make a substantial difference as well. But let me jump over to Mike. Mike, you were really the visionary that saw the value and the trend lines and all this 20-plus years ago. You're getting more excited every day, I know, when I've talked to you about what's happening in Central America. How do you see it rolling forward from here?
It's a great question. I think the reality is that Central America, South America, is a time machine if we want to look at it that way. And one of the things I always present at conferences, I ask the audience, I'd say, hey, if H.G. Wells showed up here right now with a time machine, right in the front of the room, we said, come on, everybody get on it, bring a checkbook, we're going to go back 20 years, we're going to make some investments, and I'll bring you right back to today. How many people would come back wealthier? Right? And, and then only half the people put their hands up, and I think, well, what about the rest of you guys? I mean, what are you missing here? But anyway, but of course we'd come back wealthier, right? Hindsight's 20/20. And so, do I wish I would have bought property in Cancun 20 years ago? Yeah, I definitely wish I would have bought property in Cancun or Playa del Carmen 20 years ago, but I can't. I don't have a time machine. And so when I look at a place like Ambergris Caye, Belize, and I see that Southwest is now flying there and the cruise ships have been coming en masse to the country, good or bad, like it or don't like it, it's the reality of the situation. And I say to myself, my goodness, this is like Cancun or Cozumel 20 years ago. And it really is a time machine. And so now all of a sudden I had this opportunity to buy property in Cancun or Cozumel 20 years ago, except I'm buying it in Belize today. I'm buying it in Belize, Ambergris Caye right now. And that to me is probably the most exciting element of what's happening in the region. And Belize just happens to be maybe at the sweet spot of this popularity development curve, right? I mean, people are talking about brands. The brands are coming. We're working with a major brand. And so, this is the very emergence of that in the marketplace. And so the opportunity to capitalize on that right now is it really is right now. It's today. And then, 15, 20 years from now, it really will have played out, I think, just absolutely wonderfully for the folks that get involved. So, Buddy, I hope that answered your question, but I am very, very excited about this incredible opportunity specifically in, Belize right now. And then I would also throw Nicaragua in the mix. I know Nicaragua is a place that conjures up, bad thoughts from the 70s and the 80s and all that kind of stuff. But I mean, that's a whole generation ago. That's 30 years ago. It's changed so much, and I think the opportunities there are likewise timely, just probably not quite as timely as they are in Belize today.
Yeah, but you really kind of brought that to our attention that Nicaragua is really a wonderful place, and that it's dramatically changed from the past. So that's probably a good idea to take a look there too, because that may have a little longer horizon, but it also means it'll be a little less expensive.
Can I turn the tables on you guys? I want to ask what you. Sorry, I know you're the interviewers, but I'm turning the table. You guys, I mean, well, you were there. It was your first time in Nicaragua. What were your thoughts and impressions of the country?
Well, I think we're running short on time. Am I right, Joe?
Yeah, thanks, Bob.
I'll
before we get kind of started,
segment. How's that?
Let's, what we'll do is we're going to take a break here in about a minute. So when we come back, we could pick up on that. And also I was going to ask Rachel a little bit about the world traveler that she is and maybe take us through that. So we'll kind of go in sync with what you guys are talking about. So when we come back, we'll finish. And we have about the next segment will be our last. So we'll try to pack all the good stuff in and keep things going. All right, this is Joe Kuchera sitting alongside Buddy Sope, and we are here in our studios in San Jose, Los Gatos, and also we're on the phone with Bobbi Decker, who's in Chicago, and her guests,
Mike and Rachel. And they're talking about the convention, and we're talking about Belize and Nicaragua and all kinds of great stuff. Plus, when we come back, Buddy, I think it's worth mentioning, too, some of the price points, don't you think, when we come back? Well, that's the exciting part.
Absolutely. All right. That's called a tease. We're not going to talk prices until we come back. All right, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be back with you live in just a couple of minutes.
For more information on today's program, visit RERadiolive.com. That's RERadiolive.com. Welcome back to Real Estate Radio Live, streaming live on iHeart, TuneIn, and KDOW.biz. For more information on today's topic or guest, just visit RERadiolive.com. That's RERadiolive.com. Again, your hosts for today's edition of Real Estate Radio Live, Bobbi Decker and Buddy Sopet.
And welcome back, everyone. Welcome back. I am here in Chicago with Mike Cobb and Rachel Jensen. And Mike had said to me, just as we were leaving the last segment, what did you and Buddy like most, or what did we take away? And I have to tell you, the beautiful, beautiful waters of the Caribbean is what I took away. The spectacular skyline of Panama City, the beautiful surf break of Los Oples. I mean, that was amazing. The forest was something like I would never imagine with regards to the teak. And just the generosity of the people and the fact that it's so unspoiled compared to other spots. And I have to tell you, the affordability. Mike, elaborate a little on that, because that blew me away for the views that you get.
Yeah, and it is incredible. The affordability is something that just people don't really understand until they've seen it. And so a couple examples in Nicaragua at our Grand Pacifica project, I would say calling all surfers. I know a lot of folks in California are listening to this. How about Rachel touched on the 82, 83 degree Pacific Ocean water. So you can surf all day long, no bodysuit needed, right? So the water's warm. And here's the best part, an empty break. There's nobody on these breaks, professional breaks, beach breaks. And you can have an oceanfront condo. You can own an oceanfront condo looking at the second best surf break in Nicaragua for $129,000. And when you're not there, rent it out. I mean, this is incredible. Or if you want a beautiful home, we can build you a 4,000 or 5,000 square foot home on a acre ocean lot looking at the Pacific Ocean, beautiful sunsets for under $1 million. So anywhere from $129,000 for a beautiful condo to 5,000 square foot home on the ocean for $1 million or under $1 million. And in Belize, maybe I'll let Rachel talk about the branded residence products that we have in Belize. And again, just incredibly affordable on the Caribbean. Rachel?
Yep, sure. It's direct Caribbean front in San Pedro town, about half a mile south of where all the action is, and direct oceanfront condos there start under $300,000. And if you're not necessarily looking to specifically be on the beach, you can be a couple blocks off beach. Those price points start at $139,000. So it's really, really affordable. And when you see the views, and Bobbi and Buddy, you've been down there, you get have a good understanding of it. I think the folks listening, you'll need to come down as well and see what Bobbi and Buddy saw. But it's really spectacular, and the price points there, especially compared to other comparable views, are just really incredible.
Living in golf carts was fun, wasn't it?
Totally it was. Yeah, so make sure you let everybody know Belize is golf cart country, Main Street golf cart country.
I like it.
And you fly there on a twin-engine plane that just barely, well, not barely, I mean, it's like a few thousand feet, but it's so fun to fly over those beautiful Caribbean waters and Pacific waters. It's just gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous in all the islands.
Yeah, it's spectacular. We had a grand time there. We have to thank Mike and Patrick and Jamie and of course Rachel and Betsy
and Becky,
Melissa
and Christiane.
Yeah, Christiane. Everybody was so helpful and made sure we got to see everything and got to know everything. And I think Mike and Rachel, you both made the comment. You have to go and see it. Kind of touch it, feel it, smell it, be there, and then you'll get it. Then you'll get the value proposition clearly.
That's correct. Yep.
Well, I got a couple of minutes left, so I want to make sure. Let's catch back up. I know just before we took the last break, Rachel, we're going to talk a little bit about the international travels, discussing some of the opportunities in Central America. Just for fun, give us a share of the itinerary since Bobbi and Buddy left. Give us a little idea. Give the listeners and the viewers an idea of what kind of traveling schedule you have.
To go tell the world about Central
I'm
America.
Definitely racking up the frequent flyer miles. But after Bobbi and Buddy left, I spent a couple more days in Belize and then went over to Portugal, Lisbon, and then from Lisbon met up with Mike in Paris. And then from Paris was in New Orleans, and then from there went up to Manhattan for a little bit. And now I'm here in Chicago. So it has been a whirlwind. What is it, 2 weeks? 2.5 weeks?
Yeah, I'd say.
It's wonderful.
All those frequent flyer miles really did add up. But that makes a statement of how the world is interested on what the opportunities in Central America are going to be. When you're making presentations in all those countries and locations around the world, that opens people's thinking and interest level to what the opportunity is. So I think, Mike, you kind of made the comment earlier, and I was relating to Belize as probably the next very hot spot. It's timing. That hindsight that you talked about, 20 years ago, if we knew to buy anything in California, we'd be doing very well right now. So
we have about a minute, so I want to make sure you
all
guys
right. Get everybody out.
Give your contact information out, website numbers, guys, before we have to duck out, because that's going to be really important for those interested parties.
Sure, and what I would ask is www.ecidevelopment.com, ecidevelopment.com, info@ecidevelopment.com. You can put in the subject line, attention Mike, attention Rachel. But if you would also throw something in about hearing us on the radio, we actually have a consumer resource guide, which is an incredibly valuable tool for anyone looking to own property overseas. We will send you a complimentary copy if you just mention that you heard the program. We'd love to send that to you. It's, again, extremely valuable consumer resource guide.
All right, guys, thanks for the time. We got to duck out. Joe Kuchera alongside Bobbi in Chicago.
All right,
we'll
be careful out there, everybody.
Have a great weekend. Take care.
Radio Live. For more information on today's program, visit RERadiolive.com. That's RERadiolive.com. Tune in, log in, download our podcast. Discover more at RERadiolive.com. RERadiolive.com.
The world